All right. Okay. This episode, just take a more relaxed view. I think a lot of things that I talked about wasn't clear enough, or I didn't go into much detail, and I kind of deleted the last three posts because a lot of people were interfering. But let me just say that as far as financial reform goes, I think we do need a consumer protection. It's necessary. I think it's almost the one of the reasons for government to exist is to protect its citizens, and we definitely need a consumer protection agency. And how much reach does it have? If that's the problem, it should have a lot of reach. And derivatives do need to be brought out into the open. Um, Um, and a couple people actually mailed back saying that they want me to specify how much cap I'm talking about when I talk about, say, how much cap there should be on interest rates on credit cards or loans. Well, that's variable, but I think maybe credit cards should be maxed out at 33 a year at most, and as far as capital caps goes, that depends on the size of the bank and the loan. But what I'm saying is that a country can't be dependent on one company. Like if one company goes under, or two or three companies go under, it shouldn't mean that the whole country falls apart, which is what happened uh, last year when the banks needed a bailout and we were told that everyone's going to lose their jobs, everyone's going to get into trouble, the whole country's going to go into recession, and that kind of thing should not happen. And that's what we need to stop, and that's where you come into defining what is too big to fail. The reason they're all dodging the question of what's too big to fail is because most companies, most of these big firms that pay the politicians are already too big to be legal. And that's why they want to keep it that way. And that's why no one's trying to make them smaller or trying to get into that whole area of awkwardness. They're just trying to ignore it, and they're trying to put in these other provisions saying we're going to put aside this amount of money, or the banks are going to work out a plan, and we're going to dismantle the company so that it does not exist, and stuff like that. And Geithner's talking out of his ass because that's the same kind of thing that could have happened in November. I mean, last year we could have done exactly what he's saying that we're gonna do the next time it happens. We could do the exact thing that he's saying that we will do. And if that would have happened, what would happen is we'd go into a recession or a depression, and there'd be a massive loss of jobs, massive loss of this and that. And that's why we had to bail them out in the first place, not because of any government rule that we're going to change. It's not a government law that we have to bail them out. It's because of the consequences that we did bail them out. So for him to come and say, well, this time we're not going to do it. We're going to make sure that we're going to dismantle the company, sell it off in pieces, and make sure no one else has to, so that it doesn't exist. We could have done that this time with as much with as much effort, but we didn't want to because of the consequences of those actions. And he's not even thinking like that anymore. Now he's saying that, well, bailouts, like he's just lying. He's straight lying. Geithner is lying, and he's working for Wall Street. He's in their pockets. And it's not going to solve the problem in the long run. And Republicans are not even going to debate the topic. They're not even going to discuss the situation that we're in Congress and in the Senate. And this is the biggest financial uh, disaster we've seen in decades. and the Republicans are not even willing to discuss it. All voted no on it, and they are still the favorites in the November elections. Now, how can that be? Like, aren't people paying attention? And the answer is no, they're not paying attention. They don't know that in November the same companies, the same political party that didn't want to solve the main problem for the last recession or the last depression, possible depression, is voting no on trying to solve the problem. And another fear that I don't know, I heard Donald Trump talk about it in CNN's Larry King, that he said that, well, we don't want to fall back versus the other financial um, centers. Like he didn't want to put in regulations that would set us back compared to other financial regulations. Other financial centers like is London and Tokyo and stuff like that. And I almost had to laugh at that because not only are we supposed to set an example, we actually were number one as far as these things came to be. Like we were number one, and he was talking about, well, we might fall behind. We're not going to catch up. And he had this very pessimistic, cynical sense of way of thinking about it. But you know, I don't know how his casino business is going, but the casino stock market of the U.S. isn't going that well. So we need to really put in some proper regulations and really try to give that security back to investors. Because when investors from around the world know that the United States of America is a safe place to invest in, that's when we're going to prosper. Not by all this shady dealings and, oh, we're going to be creative in ways we can cheat other people for money or ways we can hide our debt or we can be creative in ways we can shuffle our debt so that it doesn't look that bad on paper, and then we can make money off it in the short run and then sell short on it. So we need to give that confidence and security back to the people of the world that the United States is the safest and most stable place to invest in, and it might not have the growth rates of China or India, but it still will have a very good uh, productive outcome. And I also think that, yeah, I mean, I don't know, selling short. If you're gonna sell short, it just from a business point of view, from a consumer point of view, whenever you sell short, it always gets people a little behind because when you think about it, why would you sell short unless you're betting on the company to fail, or you have some inside information that knows that the company is going to fail, or you're protecting your previous bet of it going up, and then you had a loss on it, and then you had to sell, and then you had to bet short on it. So, given that information, I don't think any good comes out of it, but they should definitely look into who sells, like just like Lehman Brothers did. Goldman Sachs did, and see why they did it. Is there an ulterior motive as to why they sold the housing mortgage short, and did they have prior information of it failing, and did they do it intentionally and stuff like that? That all comes into the picture as soon as you start looking at it from that point of view. Um, all right, that's all. Thanks.